Good morning. My name is Skopondlovu from GCIS. Thank you for joining us as we talk about some of the highlights from the Cabinet meeting held on Wednesday, the 16th of October 2019 at Hayes in Cape Town. Talking to us through some of the highlights is the Acting Director General of GCIS, Ms. Phumla Williams. Welcome, DG.
Good morning, Kupo, and good morning to the viewers.
I understand, DG, that Minister Mthembu was unable to do a post-cabinet media briefing because of an important engagement he had. Now, can you please elaborate a bit on that?
Thank you very much, Kupo. I think this is the second launch that is happening in Durban, and that's where Minister Mthembu has been. It is a launch of the district development model. They have moved, if you remember that we did say that the president said this is going to be the new way of doing development in our country. And we, last month, I think we launched in going forward. They launched one of the big smartphone in the country is being launched in KZN. But what is exciting also is that it's more jobs, and it's also developing our investment book in this country. So this is what is going to be happening today, but also some of the other smaller projects that the president will be visiting across. But it is important to note that it is a launch, but going forward there's more activities that will be taking place at a district level.
Okay, so that is the eThekwini district development model that you're talking about?
Certainly, that's right.
Yes, and it is, my understanding is that it is in the spirit of Khawuleza as well, to accelerate service delivery.
Kupo, what I like to emphasize with this model, it's the first time that as government we begin to say, let's see development being brought up at a grassroots level. Yes, there will be a national, there will be a provincial, there will be a municipality, but there will be communities that will be participating. Gone are the days when we will say, for this year, this is what I'm going to do in this particular area. But it will be what you will be doing in consultation with the communities. And we can't emphasize it enough that this launch, all those that will be participating in the launch, they need not end there. They need to take an interest with their councillors, ward communities. They must take activities of the meetings, monthly meetings. Ward councillors need to meet on a regular basis with their constituency, because that's where you derive what really itches in those respective communities. At times we would say the communities are worried about the roads, and when you find that when you interact with them, they say, actually, we want vegetable gardens. Yes, we see the street, but our priority is a vegetable garden. And this model is going to assist us to refine and make sure that whatever that we put as a development in that area, it is effective, and it. And also, you know, you are not going to end up saying there's some tender of something that is not known. Communities will know well in advance what is it that you are doing. When you are saying, yes, there is a tender, it will be something that they should be knowing. But I think the key thing is that South Africans must take interest in those model, that district model approach.
Okay, great. That is very, very clear. And I like the fact that you're talking about community and community development. I know that another thing that is very close to communities' hearts is the issue of land reform. And I understand that at Cabinet, it was spoken at length, especially the progress made by the IMC on land reform, especially in accelerating land reform and redistribution through the release of state-owned land for human settlements development. So that talks to the heart of communities as well. Can you highlight some of that progress that went around, or that the discussions were about?
Yes, Kupo, I think if just also a step back, that this administration, one of the first things that they have put in place is the interministerial committee, which is chaired by the Deputy President, that pays particular attention to the issue of the land, because I think one of the things that really bothers South Africans is access to land. But not only access to land in farming area, but people are interested in getting land in the urban areas. And what was pleasing in this last cabinet, one of the piece of work that was done by the IMC that was presented by cabinet is to say, let us look at the land that is available, that is owned by the state, because I think we can be able to make progress in the development of human settlement with the land that we already have. And this last cabinet, I think a plus minus 14,100 hectares of land that is owned and in the hands of the Department of Public Works was presented to cabinet for approval. It was approved, and what is going to be happening in that this land, the power of attorney is going to be handed over to the Housing Development Agency. And I think we believe with this land having been freed and made accessible to the Housing Development Agency, there will be more houses or houses for people to relocate and to stay, because it is one of the issues that is bothering people, particularly in urban areas. But the second issue that was presented to cabinet was around some of the land that is owned by state entities, state-owned entities. I think we know a lot of land that still resides in some of the state-owned entities. And what the cabinet has said is that it has passed the decision of putting a moratorium, that they will not be allowed, at least at this stage, to sell that piece of land, because there is a program that is meant to make sure that South Africans are able to have access to human settlement and houses to stay.
And obviously, when we talk about human settlements, one does not, one can't help but think of spatial development. And I understand that Cabinet also approved publication of the National Spatial Comment. In a nutshell, what is that about? Because, I'd like for us to bring it home.
Thank you very much, Kupo. I think also, for as long as we can remember this new democracy in 1994, one of the things that we committed to do is to redress the spatial planning of this country, which was perpetuating certain areas, that was perpetuating racial divide. So this development, this framework that has been released, and cabinet has approved that it must be released for public comments and public input, it is a piece of work that has been done by all the relevant stakeholders at departmental level, at national level, at provincial level, at local government, but pulling together what is the current spatial disparities that we're talking about. What is it that we need to do to make sure that we address or redress the spatial economic development in our country? And this document is making specific proposals to say, if we are to address the concentration of economic activities in a particular area to a point of disadvantaging some other areas, this document is beginning to make that kind of a proposal, which is going stretching to 2050, but it is beginning to make proposals with plans, with areas across the country to say, if we are to really unbundle this spatial stereotypical way of seeing an economic hub in the country, how do we do it? And they make proposals, and that document will be out. It will be on the website, and people can access it and they can engage with it. But I think what is pleasing is that we now have a piece of a document that is going to guide the spatial dislocation of the current arrangement, to make sure that people don't have to see going to Joburg as a lifeline to getting an employment. If I'm working in a rural area, I don't have to be forced to go to an urban area if I want to, because in some cases people don't move from their places of origin, not because they want to, but because this is where the economy hub is taking place. And this plan, once it then begins to unfold, it will begin to assist young people to say, I don't want to move from my area, and I am educated, and I can still get a job, and I can still contribute to the economy of our country.
Great, thank you for that. I think it's a bit clearer. But when one thinks of spatial development, one has to include the critical issue of energy. And then that brings me to what Cabinet just approved, the Integrated Resource Plan, IRP 2019, which pursues a diversified mix of energy and outlines government's energy blueprint. And this morning at 10 o'clock, Minister Mantashe held a media briefing to this account. So for more information on IRP 2019, the approved IRP 2019 will be gazetted and accessible through the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy website, which is www.dmr.org.za. And then another thing, DG, is that often bills are discussed at Cabinet and bills are passed at Cabinet. So Cabinet passed a bill that deals with marine oil pollution, which is in support of Operation Phakisa. We know that Operation Phakisa is really about growing the ocean's economy and promoting economic growth. So tell us a little bit more about this marine oil pollution bill.
Thank you very much, Ekupo. I think one of what I want to say with this bill is that South Africa is a offshore that allows plus minus 12,000 ships that pass our shores, and most of those vessels, they carry quite a lot of hazardous oil, and it is in our interest that we put this bill, which, by the way, this bill will be domesticating the bill, that the international oil pollution bill, because South Africa also is a member of the International Marine Organization, which is a United Nations body that ensures that our environment is protected from pollution, and the shipping area is the worst in terms of pollution by the oil. Yes, as a country, we're interested in our ocean economy because we do see a lot of potential in that area, but if we don't take an interest in making sure that those 12,000 vessels that passes through our shores, we make sure that we have a contingency plan of making sure that we protect our environment, because if we're not going to take an interest in protecting our environment, we may just as well fall short with our ocean economy. Our ocean economy is dependent on us having our sea areas being clean and not being polluted, and this bill is seeking to do that. It is going to be taken, it's going to be released for public comments, but I think the end game is to be able to have a law that will make sure that we remain vigilant in protecting our offshores, and secondly, to make sure that we protect our ocean economic programs that will also be affected if we don't really take an interest in the oil pollution.
Thank you so much. I think that is very important. I mean, to me, being on landlocked, one doesn't always think about, those kind of things that affect our coast and so on. So it is great that we've got this bill, the Marine Oil Pollution Bill of 2019. Now, moving away from all of that altogether, but talking to something also that is a key priority area of government, and that is education. Can you tell us a little bit about the National Integrated Social Protection Information System report? Wow, that's a tongue twister. But can you tell us more about that report, the review? What were the discussions around that? Because it is really about education and how we are faring in that regard.
Kupo, yes, it is about education, but I think what is important about this piece of a submission to Cabinet, for the first time, I think we're beginning to have a handle of what our social protection program does for the poor children, how we make sure that we track that young child who comes from a poor family, who benefits from a free health clinic services, who benefits from a social grant, who also benefit from a school nutrition program, but who also benefit from the NSFAS as he proceeds to higher education. So this report that was presented to Cabinet, it is derived from a software that has been put in place that encourages integrated approach of collecting the information using an ID number of a particular student, because I think you'll appreciate that the birth certificate, kids now get their ID numbers from birth through their birth certificate. So using that unique identification, we were able to track that child right up to 2018 when he completes the matric. It then was able to tell us which school that child who was benefiting from either a foster grant or a social grant, and it also tracks this child as he enters the university. What was pleasing with the base information that was used of the 2018 matriculant, what was apparent in that the numbers that wrote matric last year, 59% of those kids, there were kids that were benefiting from the social grant program. And out of that, we also have about plus minus 36% who even obtained their degrees, and some of them obtained their diplomas, and some of them obtained their national certificate. Yes, people may say that it's a drop in an ocean, but these are kids who are given a lifeline of education, of breaking themselves out of poverty, because I think we know that education is one of the key elements to breaking the chain of poverty. So for us, I think it just begins to say to us, yes, we are in the right direction in terms of our social protection program. We've given these kids an opportunity, which some of them, their parents never even got, and we are saying we are in the right direction with our social protection program.
Wow, to me that is so exciting. I'm more excited about the integration of all these systems, because at the end of the day you want to know if your investment from early childhood development, if it has yielded the desired outcome really of entering varsity and so on. And DG, you mentioned NSFAS. So this is now a quick reminder to all who are students that if you qualify for the NSFAS funding for 2020, you must apply before the closing date of the 30th of November 2019. So if you are a qualifying student, please apply before midnight, the 30th of November 2019. So DG, before we close off, are there any upcoming events or to note or special messages from Cabinet?
Yes, just before I get into that, may I also latch on to your announcement about the NSFAS?
Yes.
We would like as government to remind those students that are already in the system, they need not apply again. The system will be able to pick them up, so they need not apply. But lastly, on the messages from government, I think the first most important one is to wishing the matriculants who will be completing their 12 years of schooling, they will be sitting for their exam. Cabinet wishes to wish them all the best as they sit for their exams, but importantly to also appeal to parents to provide them with the necessary support and communities to create that conducive environment that these kids, they've worked throughout these years. We need to provide them with that support as they sit for their examination. And lastly, Kupo, I think the Cabinet also congratulated the Springboks for moving right up to the quarterfinal, and it calls on South Africans, all of us, we have to go out and support the Springboks as they take on the Japan on Sunday, and we would like to wish them all the best, and we will all be there supporting them in our spirits, even if we are not in Japan, but we will be on our glued on our television watching to make sure that they bring it home.
Yeah, so this is going to be a sports field weekend for us.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, DG, for your time this morning, and thank you all for tuning in. From myself, Kopon Dlovu, have a great sporting weekend. Adios.
Thank you.